See that right there? That is that table saw, and this picture was taken on March 26, 2022, which was almost exactly a year ago. So we've got like 370 days of use on this Harvey Alpha HW110s 36-inch table saw, and I thought I would let you know what I think. I do gotta say, Harvey sent me this saw a year ago in exchange for me putting it together and telling you how it worked at the very beginning, and then giving you a review sometime later. Now, it was going to be a little bit sooner than this one, but I really wanted to make sure I had some solid use and some hard use behind it so that I was giving you guys some actual feedback and some real information, the good and some of the things that I may not actually like about the saw. Now, I do got to say, what I had before, the old Delta, was a great saw. It's gone off to another good home to a friend of mine. It's not really an apples to apples comparison between this saw and the saw that I used to have, because this is so much more powerful, and it's a cabinet saw. It's made different than the contractor saw that I had before. But by golly, going from what I had before at 1 3/4 horsepower to this monster, I'll show you some clips of cutting through some 1.5 inch, 1 5/8 hickory for a table I build, and this doesn't even care. It's like it's not even there. It doesn't bog down in the least bit. It's quite fantastic to use. All right, I wrote a couple of things down, both the things I like and a couple of things that I dislike, which would lead to maybe a decision that could help you out if you're trying to purchase a saw like this or weighing out different saws in this category. First thing, this is a 4 horsepower saw. It gobbles up hickory like nobody's business, and if you're cutting something like plywood or poplar, it's like it's not even there. It's really a very, very powerful saw and quite awesome to use. I did not have a riving knife on my previous saw, so take this idea as a grain of salt. But that's a big reason why I wanted to upgrade the saw, was 2 things: more power and get a riving knife for the safety aspects of the riving knife. I had a splitter, a DIY splitter on my old saw, so I had the safety of kicking out from the fence and onto the blade. But if I did any miters with that saw, I had to take that splitter out. And the riving knife is just much, much better. Now, this is not a cheap saw. So if you're looking at this saw and you're comparing with other saws on the market that might have some other safety technology, you might ask, Tyler, why would I get that saw versus this saw? And that's something that you have to weigh out. But I will say that most table saw injuries are not actually from your hand hitting the blade, they're from kickback. So having a riving knife is going to help a lot with that. Proper use of the table saw is really going to help with that. And then we'll leave it at that. If you think it's better to go with a different saw with safety technology or with a beautiful saw like we have behind me right here. And I do have the 36-inch saw. There's a 52-inch saw, I think, as well from Harvey that I believe has legs on the outside. That just couldn't fit in my shop. Now, going to this saw, I did go from a 30-inch crosscut. My old saw had 30. I think I upped that to 32 by adding the extension table on there. And this bad boy goes all the way to 3 feet, which is really, really awesome, because in building kitchens, sometimes you need that extra bit of fence capacity. So that's really awesome. And I have built a kitchen on this saw. And you will notice that I don't actually have the overarm dust collection on there right now. And that was for space reasons just in the shop. I had a huge game table that I was building, a 9-foot game table. So it took up every square inch in here. So I just needed that overarm dust collection out of the way. But I do like to use that, especially when I'm cutting large quantities of plywood, because it just cuts down on the dust that's floating around in the air. My brother-in-law and I built an entire kitchen for his house in 1 week. It had something like 36 or 40 something doors, so it was a big kitchen. And we literally had like 2 dust pans of dust sitting right where I am right now, because the dust collection on the saw is so great. There is a siphon on the 4-inch pipe coming into the saw, which is enclosed all the way around the blade. There's a siphon coming off that to the top for the overarm dust collection portion. That does block your view a little bit with that guard. But your hands will be more protected by having that guard. Now, I do notice it seems to make me slightly more dumb. And not dumb, but maybe more careless subconsciously. I do run my hand pretty close when I have that guard on. And when you actually think about it, your hand is still really dang close to that blade, even though it is protected. So you just got to be careful. Whenever you're tired, it's not good to be using power tools when you might be doing something dumb like that. So I mentioned the crosscut capacity on here. It's awesome for specific reasons like that kitchen. The other thing, these wheels on here, you could almost drive your truck on these wheels. They're big, they're heavy, they're awesome. They make it very easy to raise and lower the blade because of the mass that you can get going there, and mitering the blade as well. I mean, the little rink-a-dink wheels I had on my old one, again, it's kind of not an apples to apples comparison, but very well built, very heavy all around this saw, and I think the wheels are a good example right here. And this is a left tilting saw. Yeah, blade tips left. And I like that because I have this under table storage over here. And before I would have to kind of reach into a small crack to turn the blade. It was a right tilting blade on my old saw. But I really like this. And actually the left tilting reason was another aspect as to why I look at this particular saw, because I wanted to have the left tilt knowing how my shop was set up. The miter gauge. Now, there has been some controversy from various different woodworkers about the miter gauge. Again, I was kind of coming from a cheaper miter gauge with the Delta, so I don't have a lot of experience, but I have used a sled before, so I know what a nice square cut should look like. And I would say overall, it's a very nice miter gauge. There is a little bit of slop when you have a bigger, heavy piece on there. So maybe for the price, it could be a little bit better. And most of that slop is on the back end of the miter gauge. And I could show you that in a close-up right here. You can see as I wiggle this a little bit in the back, there's just a tiny bit of slop. And as you're cutting something heavy or something long, that slop does come into effect. So maybe on the back here, if there was another one of these offset washers, that could resolve that situation. But a little bit sloppy. You do get that very nice compass miter gauge with the table saw. It's not an accessory that you have to buy externally, but if you were to buy it on its own, it might be a little bit expensive for what you're getting right there without that perfect miter capability. Now, it's really, really good, and you can make really, really perfect miters for something like a picture frame, but as soon as you put something a little bit heavier on there, you might run into a little bit of problem. Now, the dust collection on this is great. I mentioned it a little bit ago. You got that 4-inch port coming in the bottom. There is a hose running from there right up, completely enclosing the blade. So you got really good dust collection at your blade. And then back at that 4-inch entry, you have a siphon that runs to the top to the overarm dust collection. And when you actually have the guard hood on there, it works really, really awesome. Now, this saw has a dovetail raise and lowering system on here versus a trunnion kind of rocker system. Now, going from a trunnion rocker that was a table mounted on a contractor saw, it really wasn't all that good. So again, not an apples to apples comparison, but I do gotta say that the dovetail mechanism here, very, very solid. There's no slop in there at all. And I think that you're going to get overall long-term repeatable consistency and longevity with that technology over a trunnion rocker system. So it's great, it's solid, it's very smooth as well. So I like it. Is that like a make or break deal when you're looking to buy a table saw? Probably not, but it's pretty sweet technology. Now, a couple of things that I don't really care for, and if I was to buy it again or get it again, I wouldn't get it. The titanium nitride coating on the top here, really not impressed. You can see in a couple spots where it's kind of, I had to basically buff out a little bit of rust, and the tin coating pretty much buffs right off. So is it worth the extra couple $100? I don't really think so. And it also seems slightly gritty, like it was kind of sticky when using the table saw. So just recently, I actually purchased a carbon method carbon coating on here. It's another Michigan company over in Grand Rapids, Michigan, so I would like to support him. But I purchased the carbon method. I've seen a couple of different YouTubers use it, and I haven't actually used the table saw since I put it on here, but my simple test, it seems to be a big improvement with the friction of that table Hopefully that carbon method helps protect that tin coating and obviously prevents it from any rust. Now, I've always put paste wax, or my favorite non-silicone Teflon dry lube is what I typically use on the tools, but somehow I got those 2 dabs of rust on there, which is where I had to buff out the tin coating. But overall, not really impressed with the tin coating. If I was to even get a free saw again from Harvey, I wouldn't go with the tin coating. I would just go with a pure cast iron, and then I would probably still put that carbon method coating on there as well. Now, the manual is very, very lacking for putting this saw together. There was a couple times that I actually had to go out on a leap of faith and try something out to see if it would work, and luckily it did, or if it didn't, it was easy enough to revert back, because the manual is really wanting a little bit of help there. And a couple of you folks have reached out to me after buying a table saw based on my review a year ago, and said the same thing, that the instructions are pretty lacking. And the other thing that I kind of dislike about the saw, and it's easily fixable with a little bit of Loctite, but it seems like the insert plate screws, the adjustment screws, are always moving on me. So a little dab of Loctite should lock that right in once you get it nice and level, and you shouldn't have a problem. But I seem to have to adjust them quite a bit, which is a little bit frustrating, especially for a saw that doesn't really vibrate. I don't know why those screws self-adjust. So this is, I don't know what you call this fence right here, but it is, you can flip it. So you have a high fence right here, and then you can flip it so you have a low one. There's aspects of that are very nice. But overall, I think I would prefer kind of the Biesmeyer style fence, where you can clamp accessories on there a little bit easier. So maybe if Harvey was to add a Biesmeyer or this T-Track, I don't remember what this is called. You can choose the 2 when you go to purchase. That might be a good option, because overall I think I would prefer the Biesmeyer style fence. Now, can I do that on here by adding some HDF or something like that on the sides here? Yes, probably, and maybe I'll consider that at some point if I ever get some time. Now, what I'm going to mention right here I think is actually a blade problem and not a saw problem, but it seems like I can never get an absolutely perfectly smooth rip cut, like a glue line rip cut. Now, it could be the blades, like I said, because I did put a dial indicator against the arbor, and it was perfect. Again, I go back to that accuracy out of the box. It's not something in the saw, I don't think. I think it's something in the blades. But again, I can't get a perfectly perfect cut. Now, is it good enough that I can just glue? Now, is it good enough that you kind of can just glue up, clamp real tight? Yes. A little whack with a sander maybe, and you're ready to go. But I wish I could just get it a little bit better. But maybe I just need to get a better blade. If you guys have any recommendations for some blades, Harvey does make their destroyer blade. Maybe I should try one of those. Forest Woodworker 2. You guys tell me what blades you like down in the comments below. Now, that is my opinion. I tried to be as unbiased as I can there. I really do love the saw, and I do recommend it to anyone that's looking for a powerful table saw like this for their woodworking shop, whether a personal or a commercial shop. This thing will have plenty of power for you. Thank you, Harvey, for supplying this in the shop. It is a pleasure to use, and I hope I have sold you some table saws over time. Hope this was helpful. If it was, please hammer that thumbs up button. Even if it wasn't helpful, please hammer that thumbs up button, because it helps us out and gets this video in front of more eyes. I'm DIY Tyler. This is my beautiful Harvey table saw. You guys have a good one.